Very often when I'm putting together a song, I think of an instrument or a texture that I would like to hear in the song without really knowing specifically how I'm going to use it. For example, on this one, I liked the idea of a harmonica, really to add a bit of balls, and also to give you that sort of sense of, you know, the convertible car burning across the desert, and so on. So a friend of Justin's, my drummer, is a guy called Jeff Grange, who is a very good blues harmonica. So I had him come in and record some harmonica basically from start to finish all over the track. So he blew all the way through it, but at the end I only used a couple of little pieces, and those ones that I did use I disguised as something completely different by using distortion and reverb and things like that. But anyway, this is what Jeff did originally. So it's perfectly great in itself, but didn't really fit with the track because it was conflicting with the vocal. So in the end what I did with it was I just chose a few little choice bits and pieces, and I fed them into a distortion effect in Pro Tools and a bunch of reverb. So you can't really at the end of the day make out quite what the harmonica is playing note for note. It's just got that vibe to it. Each one of these takes you see here is a different recording, a different take of harmonica, but in the end I chopped them all up, just took the little bits that I liked from each, and that means that we can basically get rid of all of those superfluous tracks, like so, and you just end up with this track here, and that's what's called a comp track. By the way, if you're wondering why my studio isn't all full of wires, then the reason is that in Pro Tools you can add what are called plugins to any track you like, and plugins are often simulations of boxes that in the old days used to have to connect via a wire. We used to call it outboard gear. So if I've got, let's say, my harmonica there and I don't like the distortion effect I've got in it, I could decide instead to select a different plugin here. I might decide, for example, to go for a very nice vintage EQ, something like this. And then what I get is a very nice picture of the front of the box, and digitally it models the sound that I would have gotten out of such a box like that. But the neat thing is that I don't have to crawl around with whole loads of spaghetti under the mixing board trying to connect the thing up. So what does all this sound like, you wonder? Well, here's the natural sound of the harmonica. So let's look for a more interesting EQ on it. And add some compression. And lastly, I'll add a bit of distortion. Very often harmonica players hold a microphone that is plugged into a little guitar amp or something like that on stage, so they get that really nice distortion. But in Pro Tools we can do with this with just an effect. etc. So a little bit about the vocals. On Road to Reno, the vocals are actually very simple. On the ground track, the backing track, I did a guide vocal. The only issue with it is that it's got piano all over it because I was playing a grand piano and that leaked into the vocal mic. So where those clash, where those actually overlap, it's not really an option to use the original vocal. But there were a few good lines here and there. In a 64 Camaro, he promised her the moon, and they rode the open freeway. Whereas on the overdubbed vocal, you get a nice clean vocal with lots of signal, but sometimes it doesn't quite have the same vibes. In a 64 Camaro, he promised her the moon, and they rode the open freeway on the road to Reno, yeah. They had to fall in love, they heard the call of love, they shouted. Now, as I mentioned, the vocals are very simple on this. There's a little bit of backing vocals in the chorus and occasional lines of lead vocal that are double tracked for emphasis, like this. Crash the stars for love on the road to Reno, yeah. On the road to Reno. Yes, so certain lines like that I just pick out by double tracking them. Some people's voice sounds really good double tracked. Mine does not sound that good most of the time. It tends, I think because it's quite grainy, it just tends to sort of just get mushy when you double track it. So I don't do that very often, but I do pick out occasional lines. And the backing vocals in the chorus are just basically 3 or 4 of me stacked up singing the For Love. For love, for love, for love. They scratch the stars for love on the road to Reno, yeah. On the road to Reno. And when love was not enough, they just put their faith in God. Saw the writing on the wall, like the mountains of the moon. And when all the love ran out, he went out and bought a gun, and he took it to their room, and he filed the number off, and he blew them both away to the mountains of the moon. Well, I hope you enjoyed my analysis of Road to Reno. Keep an eye out for Toad Lickers and 17 Hills, which should be available in the next few weeks on YouTube alongside this one. In the meantime, take care.